Welcome to today's deep dive. We are so glad you are joining us for this one.
Oh, yeah. We got a really intense one today.
We really do. Because today we are opening up a source file from 1998 that absolutely redefines the concept of a locked room mystery.
Completely turns it on its head.
Right. Our material today centers entirely around this meticulously documented, deeply chilling case file known as the Silent Caller.
Also known in the original records as the White Fog Town radio room disappearance.
Exactly. And our mission now on this deep dive is to unpack an impossible disappearance.
Which is not an exaggeration.
Not at all. We are going to walk you through a timeline that pushes the very boundaries of logic, and then we are going to plunge into the terrifying psychology of parasitic relationships.
It's a wild ride.
It really is, and you are going to want to hear every single detail of this.
Just to set the stakes for you right at the top, this isn't just a standard true crime story.
No.
It is a masterclass in challenging the everyday assumptions we all make about our own safety.
Yeah, that false sense of security.
Exactly. This case forces us to deeply examine the psychological weight of the media we consume, the connections we think we are making, and, the hidden vulnerabilities in our everyday, seemingly secure environments.
You might actually look at your own locked front door a little differently by the time we finish going through these sources today.
I know I did it.
I know my perspective completely shifted after reading through this file. So let's start by setting the scene.
Please do.
I want you to picture a place called White Fog Town.
Even the name just sets the mood perfectly.
It really does. It's a closed-off, tight-knit society that depends heavily on the local fishing industry. And because of its unique geography and this coastal climate, the town is constantly blanketed in this thick, heavy fog.
Just pervasive.
Right. And I don't know about you, but whenever I'm in a heavy fog, even just driving down a familiar street, there's this immediate sense of claustrophobia.
Oh, absolutely. You feel completely cut off.
You really do feel like you're the only person left on Earth. It's the kind of place where the weather naturally keeps everyone isolated in their own little bubbles.
Which is the perfect incubator for this kind of story.
It is. And right in the center of this foggy, nocturnal world is a woman named Lynn Na.
She truly is the heart of this narrative.
He is.
Lynn Na was 26 years old at the time of the incident. And by all accounts in the file, she had this wonderfully gentle nature, someone people naturally gravitated toward.
Very empathetic.
Right. She was actually just about to be engaged to be married. But her true impact on White Fog Town, the reason she is central to this file, was her job.
Which was so vital to that community.
It was. She was the host of a midnight emotional radio show called Foggy Night Returner.
That makes perfect sense for a place like White Fog Town. Picture all those night shift workers.
The fishermen out on the water.
Exactly. The security guards pacing empty lots, the factory workers, all of them toiling away in the cold, isolating mist. Lynn Na's voice was their spiritual anchor.
A literal voice in the dark.
She was the warm, comforting presence in the middle of a very dark night. People relied on her for a sense of connection.
But that brings us to the night everything changed.
It does. Okay, let's unpack this. The exact timeline is crucial to understanding the impossible nature of this case. The date is November 14th, 1998. The time is exactly 2:14 a.m.
At 2:14 a.m., Lynn Na takes what will be her final listener call of the night.
And this is where the audio transcripts get terrifying.
They do, because when she connects the line, the caller doesn't say a word. The case file includes the transcription and analysis of the audio recording from this broadcast, and it captured something incredibly eerie.
Just total silence.
Well, no voice. There is only the sound of faint rhythmic breathing, and somewhere deep in the background, the subtle sound of water dripping.
You can almost feel the tension in the broadcast booth just imagining it.
Oh, it's palpable.
Lynn Na, being the gentle and accommodating host she is, politely asks into the microphone if the caller needs help.
And what follows is exactly 40 seconds of suffocating, agonizing silence.
Which on live radio
is an eternity. When you are sitting alone in a room, 40 seconds feels like an absolute eternity. The only sound going out over the airwaves to all those listeners is the faint static of the radio white noise.
And then that tense silence is violently broken.
The source material details a sudden, terrifying escalation captured perfectly on the audio feed.
First, there are the harsh, abrasive sounds of a microphone being physically struck.
Right. That's followed by the heavy crash of a studio chair hitting the floor.
And then comes the most disturbing part. Hurried, muffled gasps.
The acoustic profiling identifies it as the distinct sound of someone desperately trying to draw breath while their mouth is being firmly covered.
And after that brief, violent struggle.
It's just endless, empty white noise.
It is genuinely horrifying to think about all those solitary night workers listening to this happen live, entirely helpless.
The police are immediately called by several listeners, though.
Yeah, and to their credit, the response time is incredibly fast. 5 minutes.
That's practically unheard of.
That's all it took from the moment the struggle was broadcast to the moment officers arrived. 5 minutes later, they are kicking down the heavy security door to the second-floor broadcast room.
And this is where the physics of the crime just completely break down.
The security door to the studio was perfectly locked from the inside.
It is a textbook locked room scenario, but played out in real time.
When the police breach that second-floor room, they find a scene that defies logical explanation.
There is absolutely no blood.
None.
There are no signs of forced entry on the windows and no indication of a prolonged violent struggle that would suggest a break-in from the outside.
Lynn Nye's winter coat is still draped casually over the back of her fallen chair. Her coffee on the desk is literally still hot to the touch.
But Lynn Nye herself, she has vanished into thin air.
It makes zero sense. The heavy door was dead-bolted from the inside. They're on the second floor of a concrete building. There's no way out.
So the town naturally goes into a state of immediate panic.
Of course they do. The police start frantically looking for anyone who might have an unhealthy obsession with Lynn Nye.
And they actually find a prime suspect remarkably fast.
The file refers to him as Old Lie.
Right. A local unemployed man known around town for suffering from severe delusions.
And when police search his property, they uncover a hidden basement.
A basement completely plastered floor to ceiling with candid photographs of Lynn Nye.
It is the quintessential stalker shrine.
To make matters even more damning for Old Lie, the police canvass the area around his property and actually recover Lynn Nye's missing red shoe in the brush near his house.
So at this point, the authorities are confident they have their perpetrator.
It fits the psychological profile, they have physical evidence linking her to his location, and they have clear motive based on his extreme obsession.
But the investigation slams into a massive brick wall.
It's the first major twist in the sources we are looking at.
Old Lie has an alibi.
Not just a vague alibi provided by a friend. He has an airtight, completely undeniable alibi.
On the night of the crime, Old Lie was locked up in a holding cell in a neighboring town because he had caused a public disturbance earlier that evening.
He couldn't possibly have been inside the broadcast room at 2:14 a.m.
He was sitting behind iron bars, miles away from White Fog Town.
Which leaves the police back at square one. But with a deeply disturbed, obsessed man sitting in an interrogation room who clearly knows something about the broadcast.
During his interview, Old Lie is visibly terrified.
Not of the police detectives, but of something else entirely.
He ends up giving them a cryptic clue that completely alters the trajectory of the investigation. Here's where it gets really interesting.
This part is so wild.
Old Lie, physically shaking in the interrogation room, looks at the detectives and asks them how they couldn't hear it.
He tells them that the background noise in Lynn Nye's broadcast for the last half month was wrong.
He says, and I quote directly from the file, "Someone hid a sound."
That phrase alone sends a chill down your spine.
It really does. So the police take Old Lie's claims seriously, considering his obsessive listening habits.
They pull the broadcast tapes from the last 2 weeks and hand them over to acoustic experts for deep-level audio filtering and analysis.
And what these experts find buried in the audio track is almost beyond belief. It requires a bit of understanding about how 1998 radio technology functioned.
I was hoping we could get into that. How do you even go about hiding a sound on a live, town-wide broadcast?
Well, in 1998, local AM/FM radio wasn't the perfectly crisp digital signal we are used to today.
It was analog.
Right, which meant there was always a certain amount of ambient static. The acoustic experts analyzed what's called the noise floor of the transmission.
By noise floor, you mean that baseline hum or static we all hear when a DJ stops talking for a second, right?
Correct. It's the ambient signal that's always present beneath the main audio. Someone with a localized, moderately powerful transmitter can actually piggyback on a main frequency.
If they stay just under the decibel level of the primary broadcast, their transmission blends right into that noise floor.
And when the experts isolated and boosted that specific frequency beneath Lynn Nye's voice, they discovered a rhythmic pattern.
It was Morse code.
For half a month, every single night, someone had been layering a hidden message beneath the static, sending it out to every radio in White Fog Town.
And when the experts translated that looping Morse code, the sentence read, "I am right behind her."
What's fascinating here is the sheer level of psychological warfare at play.
The killer manipulated the town's own infrastructure. Lin Na's show was meant to be a voice of comfort, a beacon in the oppressive fog.
And the killer hijacked that intimate connection and turned it into a subliminal weapon of terror.
Every person who fell asleep listening to her voice was unknowingly inviting the killer's taunt into their homes.
It is a level of premeditation that is deeply unsettling. The killer is literally broadcasting their intentions to the entire town.
But no one can hear it except the one guy whose severe obsession made him listen too closely.
So this acoustic analysis proves there is a highly organized, tech-savvy predator out there. But trying to trace a hijacked analog radio signal from weeks ago in 1998 was nearly impossible.
They hit another dead end.
This frustration forces the police to pivot back to old-school detective work and focus entirely on that exact moment of the attack.
The 40-second silent phone call.
If Old-Lie didn't make that call, who did?
The answer to that question requires immense patience. It comes half a month later, buried in the physical telecom logs requested from the local post office.
The police had been trying to trace the origin of that specific call, placed at 2:12 a.m.
When the post office finally delivers the caller ID data, it reveals a detail that shatters their entire understanding of the crime scene.
Wait, so they finally tracked the call from the post office logs? Did it give them a residential address? A payphone location?
That's the craziest part of the file. It didn't give them an address.
Okay.
It didn't even give them a normal phone number with an area code or a standard local prefix.
And what was it?
In the space where a normal phone number should be on the log, there were just 2 digits. 04.
04. What does that even mean in a telecom log? Is that some sort of system error code?
To understand the significance of 04, we had to look at the architecture of commercial buildings and the phone technology of the late 90s.
Right.
The broadcast center utilized a PBX, or private branch exchange system.
In a closed-loop PBX system, a 2-digit number doesn't even touch the outside municipal phone grid.
Exactly. It is literal copper wire running internally from one room to another within the same facility.
That's why there was no area code.
The call that precipitated the attack wasn't an external listener phoning in from the foggy town.
It was a closed loop.
The call originated from inside the broadcast building itself.
That is terrifying. So the police pulled the architectural blueprints for the broadcast building to trace these internal wires.
Extension 01 is the station director's office.
Extension 02 is the main editing room.
Extension 03 is Lin Na's broadcast room on the 2nd floor.
And Extension 04. That specific copper wire ran down into an abandoned storage room located on basement level 1.
As soon as the investigators realize this, they rush down into the unlit bowels of the building.
They locate this forgotten storage room in the basement.
And geographically, when you look at the blueprints, this room is positioned directly beneath Lin Na's 2nd floor studio.
And the scene they find inside is like a museum exhibit of a predator's lair. It's so creepy to visualize.
They force open the door to this dusty basement room, and inside they find a solitary folding chair in the center.
Next to it, a radio is still plugged into the wall, rustling with static.
There's an old rotary dial phone sitting on the floor, extension 04.
But the most horrifying detail is right above them.
The heavy iron grate of the ceiling ventilation duct has been completely removed.
And that dark duct leads straight up, cutting through the concrete floors directly into Lin Na's broadcast room.
This basement discovery allows investigators to completely reconstruct the killer's mechanics.
And it brilliantly resolves the impossible locked room paradox.
The tragic irony of this entire case is that Lin Na dutifully locked her heavy security door every single night to keep the dangers of the outside world out.
She thought she was securing her perimeter.
She was completely unaware that the killer was already inside her locked room ecosystem.
They didn't breach the walls. They were already living inside them.
For months, the killer had simply sat in that basement storage room.
They sat in the dark on that folding chair, listening to the muffled, real-time sounds of her voice coming through the floorboards above,
while simultaneously monitoring her broadcast on the radio.
They studied her routine, her physical movements, her show's exact schedule.
And on the night of November 14th, the killer didn't break in through the heavy door. They quietly crawled up the internal ventilation duct.
And that 40-second silent phone call, the one with the faint breathing and the dripping water that we thought was just a sick prank to scare her.
It wasn't a prank at all. It was entirely tactical.
The killer was already positioned at the top of the vent, right inside her room.
But they couldn't see her. So they used the internal rotary phone, extension 04, to call extension 03.
They didn't need to speak. The only purpose of that silent call was to confirm her exact physical position in the room.
By listening to her pick up the receiver and speak into the phone, the killer confirmed that Lynn Na was sitting at her desk,
Physically tethered by the phone cord.
with her back completely exposed to the open ventilation shaft.
It's brilliant in the most evil, predatory way possible.
She's completely distracted. Her empathy is engaging her to try and help a silent caller, and she has no idea the real threat is literally inches behind her head.
The killer ambushes her from behind, which perfectly explains those muffled gasps and the total lack of a prolonged fight.
And drags her straight back down into the ductwork.
That's why the door was still perfectly deadbolted from the inside.
That's why the coffee was still hot.
The room wasn't breached. It was bypassed completely from within.
It's an infiltration of a supposedly safe space from a direction human beings are rarely conditioned to monitor.
We watch doors and windows. We rarely look up or down.
The killer utilized the very infrastructure designed to provide air and circulation to the building as their own personal corridor.
So what does this all mean? Why does a closed case file from a foggy fishing town in 1998 still resonate so deeply with us today?
Because it's unnerving.
It is. I have to admit, as I was reading the end of this file, I felt a genuine, lingering sense of unease about my own surroundings and the media I consume.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it strikes at the very core of human vulnerability and the illusion of security.
We rely incredibly heavily on physical barriers.
We lock our doors, we draw our blinds at night, we invest in alarm systems.
We tell ourselves a story that if the physical perimeter is secure, we are safe.
But the White Fogtown case proves that these barriers are often psychological comforts more than actual physical guarantees.
True terror doesn't always have to break the door down from the outside.
Sometimes it incubates entirely from within the walls we trust the most. It weaponizes the hidden architecture of our safe spaces against us.
And we also have to talk about the psychological element of her job, the relationship between the radio host and the audience.
That dynamic feels incredibly relevant to how we live today.
Especially with how much audio content we all consume.
It is the ultimate tragic exhibition of parasitic companionship.
We need to distinguish between what we call parasocial relationships and truly parasitic ones.
Look at what Lynn Na was doing. She was offering a form of one-way companionship through the airwaves.
Neurologically, human brains evolved to hear a voice close to our ear and assume that person is a friend, a member of our immediate tribe.
We feel an intimate bond with voices in our headphones or radios.
For the lonely, isolated people in that town, it was a parasocial relationship. They felt they knew her even if she didn't know them.
She gave them comfort, and in return, they gave her their listenership.
But the killer took that biological vulnerability and twisted it.
They didn't want the comfort of companionship. They desired complete physical possession.
That is where it becomes parasitic.
A parasite doesn't just coexist, it drains the host.
The source file notes a really profound poetic tragedy about this case. When the broadcaster speaks into the abyss, offering their time, their empathy, their voice.
Sometimes the abyss is on the other end, silently hitting the record button.
The killer fed off her empathy.
They used her innate human desire to connect with a silent caller as the very mechanism to physically locate and destroy her.
It shows how the human need for connection can be weaponized.
It really makes you think about every late-night radio show, every live stream, every piece of audio we put out into the world.
You never truly know who is on the other end of that signal, sitting in the dark, or what they're taking from it.
And the most chilling part of this whole deep dive is the aftermath.
Because despite finding the basement, despite finding the vent and the rotary phone, this story does not have a neat, satisfying resolution.
Unfortunately, it does not. The investigative trail goes cold right at the ventilation shaft.
The police did manage to pull latent fingerprints from the folding chair and the rotary phone in the basement.
But this was 1998, and even with the regional databases they had access to, the prints never matched anyone in the system.
The person who sat in that dark room for months, who crawled up that shaft, who broadcast Morse code into the night, remains entirely at large.
And the case file ends with a footnote that is almost harder to stomach than the crime itself.
For the next 3 years, on November 14th, the exact same date of Lynn Na's disappearance.
Another woman in the surrounding geographic area vanished without a trace.
Then at every single one of those crime scenes, the killer left nothing behind but a radio, turned on, playing endless white static.
A calling card. A signature that proves they are still out there, still listening, still broadcasting their dominance over the abyss.
It's a thought that is going to stick with me for a very long time. The idea of the silent caller, just waiting patiently in the noise floor of the static.
It certainly leaves a lingering chill, especially when you think about how our world has evolved since 1998. This raises an important question for you listening to us right now.
If Lynn Nodd's fatal vulnerability was a physical ventilation shaft in a brick-and-mortar building,
What are the digital ventilation shafts we are unknowingly building into our own lives today?
in an era where we constantly broadcast our voices, our exact locations, our daily routines, and our intimate thoughts into the digital ether for these one-way connections?
How sure are you really that your own doors are actually locked against the abyss listening on the other side?